On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I get into player empowerment and how that is impacting the NBA right now, why it's good for players, may not be good for the organizations. We'll discuss it next, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, you are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, from the Inquirer.com, Sixers beat writer Keith Pompey. Keith, what's happening, man?
What's up, D? How you doing?
Man, pretty good. No complaints at all. But hey, we're back here doing the show. So first, we got to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, it's free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Keith, we got to talk about player empowerment, so we'll do that in the first two segments, and then the final one we'll also dive into, something a little bit different as well as we hang around with the folks here on this lovely Wednesday. But player empowerment, man. I mean, how do you feel about it? I want to know from the people, of course, in the comments and tweeting at us as they have been. One of the popular ones we had, Keith, was the Tyrese Maxey discussion from the other day. But reach out to us on social media at Keith, at Pompey on Sixers, at Devon G975, and tell us how you feel about player empowerment, because I am one who I've not had a problem with a lot of the moves when players have decided to put their careers in their hands themselves and not worry about what the organization is doing, because just as fast as they decide that they may want to trade, even faster the organizations will decide to move on from a player as well. And that's where I am, to be able to have that freedom of movement to a certain extent. Some I say more so than not, I'm okay with it. There are certain instances that do pop up where I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you want to leave that situation? What's going on? And of course, we don't know everything behind the scenes. Even though someone like yourself would do a great job in reporting, we may not know all. So I'm typically good with it. And we know it's affected the Sixers in the last season because of the Ben Simmons angle of it. And then in turn, James Harden from his side with Brooklyn coming to Philadelphia. So I guess we'll start there, man. How do you feel about it? And do you think it's a problem within the NBA?
It's weird. I do think there is a problem, becoming a problem within the NBA in regards to, owners and general managers and stuff like that, because, they're not allowing, but guys are forcing their way out and forcing their hands, and it's making it a tough situation for them. However, at the same time, I look at it and I think that sometimes you enabled these guys to do this. I mean, when we look at it, we can go back to, the dress code and everything like that. It got to a point where guys got away with things. Then all of a sudden, players start making these supermax contracts. The players got smart enough to realize that, hey, they're coming to see me. I'm the guy. And if I'm not here, the team is not going to make money. And if I want out, it gets to a point where I can make it a sticky situation for them. And, so like when you look at the whole Ben Simmons situation last year, everybody said, what is he doing? He's not going to get away with that. Well, he got his wish. Now, we'll see if he gets paid, but he got his wish. You look at Kevin Durant and you look at Kyrie Irving, where they both had a meeting in Miami after an All-Star game a couple years ago and saying that they wanted to team up together. And guess what happened? They're in Brooklyn. You look at James Harden. You talked about James saying, I went out of Houston. Then, I don't like Brooklyn. I'm out of here. So it's one of those things where, yes, it's a problem for executives. It's a problem for ownership. But it's not a problem for the players, because the players realize how much money they make. Now, the one thing that's going to happen, like, I don't have a problem with it, but the one thing that's going to happen is when they have this collective bargaining agreement, then certain ownership group are going to say, hey, look, man, we're giving these guys too much money. we're giving them too much freedom. So we're going to have to take back some control. So that's the thing that's going to happen. But again, it's a players' league. They say the agents run the league because it's a players' league. So I think that this is just a ripple effect of what's going on.
And think about it from the very start. When they enter the NBA, they go and they have the draft, and oftentimes they don't have control over where they're going. So then you have the extension from the rookie deal, and a lot of times you like your situation, other times you may not, and you're just signing it to get the money, and then after a year, that's when you decide, I want out, I want to request a trade. So you are under the control, like Simmons in this case, under the control of the organization for so many years that maybe you do want out. And look, Ben Simmons wanted out. Okay, fine. I think part of it for him was that he just simply needed to look himself in the mirror. That's why I had a problem with him wanting to request a trade, when it was more about him not doing the extra things needed to improve himself as a basketball player and his standing, not only in the organization, but with the city and the fan base, to become an overall better player. That's why I had a problem with him. But once it was what it was, all right, fine. I didn't want him on the team anyway, just simply because of how he performed in that Atlanta series, and he lost, at least as a basketball observer. How can I, if I'm observing him from afar, if I'm a fan or even a teammate, how can I trust him when he can't even take, let's just use that one play as an example, take a shot? So for him, that was a problem for me. But when I look at Kevin Durant or even LeBron James, we can get into that into the next segment. Kyrie Irving, we'll talk about that as well. But when I look at, let's just say, Kevin Durant from the start, it was free agency. He signed his contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He honored it the way he did, and he left. He decided to go elsewhere, whether it was because he wanted to play with Russell Westbrook anymore or not. He couldn't handle that, wanted to play a better brand of basketball with the Golden State Warriors, whatever it was. He fulfilled his obligation of his deal with that organization, and then he decided to leave. Now, I have a problem as far as stylistically why he left Golden State and decided to go and attach himself to Kyrie Irving. But again, that's a whole nother thing. We can talk about James with the Heat, going back to Cleveland, Lakers, all of that. We'll do that next right here on this next segment, Locked On 76ers.
Before we get into the next segment, it's always good to talk about Bet Online, right? Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and game. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. Bet Online, where the game starts.
You didn't say do it today, people.
Yeah, I didn't say it today.
Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, I use the example of Kevin Durant leaving Oklahoma City, going to Golden State. Didn't have a problem with it. I don't think people really had a problem with it, except for where he landed because of losing to the Golden State Warriors and then decided to join that. That's another discussion for another day. Like I have been saying, since then, I had zero problem with it. It was his choice. And I didn't like the Brooklyn move just because I thought, why would you leave? Outside of wanting to win and do it on your own, quote unquote, on your own, I just didn't understand why leave that where it seemed like it was working, you were winning, to go and attach yourself to Kyrie Irving, where you already had your questions leaving Cleveland and Boston, and now going to Brooklyn and teaming up with him. And we see that coming to fruition again, where he's been flaky as a teammate. And that part I had a problem with. The LeBron James going from Cleveland to Miami, he was a free agent. He can do whatever he wanted. But now certain guys like him, where he's starting to be basically the GM, if you will, making these decisions. That's also player empowerment, Keith, where you're flexing your muscles and being able to do things the way you want with the organization, calling the shots, which Sometimes you like because you see a certain fit and you say, hey, maybe I can play with this player from that team. If he becomes available, can we get him on his trade deadline? You hear that he could be up for grabs. Can you go grab him? I don't have a problem with stuff like that. Can you give some of those examples that we're talking about? Because that Brooklyn thing with Kyrie Irving, that was weird because of leaving Boston. I'm not too familiar with how it all went down because it was Boston with him. But what stands out is him in that, I think it was a fan thing where the organization had with a bunch of season ticket holders and fans. And he was like, if Boston will have me, I'm happy to be here. And then he turned his back on him and he went to Brooklyn. His choice, but it's kind of weird of how he did it. Do you have some examples where you feel like
I mean,
was okay and maybe not okay?
I mean, in particular, that was a little different because it was one of those things where when you look at it, I guess, he did say that he was coming back, right? But then he even said it to the media that, this is one of those things. But when you really look into it, what else is a guy going to say? Like when you ask that question, well, I mean, when you
say, I love it here. Just say, I love it here. I love the championship here.
Yeah, but so true, but a lot of times when guys, sometimes they overthink. They're like, well, if I don't give them an answer, then all of a sudden this is going to be something that's going to hound me all year. And then sometimes they say, they tell you, you know how that thing is, like, be careful who you ask who loves you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, do you love me? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course I love you. You're my boo. You're my baby. I love you. But they just saying that because they don't want to say, nah, I don't love you and deal with what's going to happen with that. So it's one of those things to me like that, right? But yeah, he did do it. He got kind of flaky on him and that, that really messed him up. But like, to me, it's more so like I don't have a problem with that. The examples, and I don't have a problem with any of it because you use your power to do stuff. Now, I think a lot of people have a problem with KD and Kyrie when they said we're going to have this meeting and we're going to decide to go to Brooklyn. We're going to make this super team. We're going to forget it. Like, okay, LeBron and them did it in Cleveland when he came back. He did in Cleveland. He did in Miami. But at the same time, let's be 100. That was all with Pat Riley's blessings. But Pat Riley also said, okay, here's the parameters. Here's the rule. You look at Kyrie, man. Kyrie, when we talk about an example of player empowerment that some people don't like, is like, okay, I'm in Brooklyn. I ain't going to the bubble. I'm not doing it. Even though you had a right to get out, they say you're not doing it. Another example of player empowerment was then the next season is one of those things where, hey, man, I'm taking personal time. I don't feel like playing. Oh, then you say to the coach, have you spoken to Kyrie? No, I haven't spoken to him. If he did or not, but coach was saying he has, right? So I think those are examples. And then this past year, hey, I'm not getting my COVID test. I'm not doing it. And I think those are examples where people are getting upset with it. But at the same time, here's the rules. He's not bending the rules, or let's face it, it got to a point where if that was the 15th man on the bench or a rotation guy, and he said, guess what, y'all, I ain't playing. They would have been fining him. They would have docked his pay. Another thing they would have done was they would have probably waived the guy, right? They would have waived him and got somebody else. But what happens is when you're such a great player, where the player empowerment part comes in that you mean so much to the franchise that the owners tend to give you more of a leash than they do the coach, than they do the front office executives. So it's hard for them to come down hard on you because all the player has to say is, hey, get them out of here. So that's the thing. Now, again, those are some of the things I think that the league is going to have to try to change because, you're getting to a point where guys aren't playing. Guys just aren't playing.
Listen, man, it's a tough one. And it makes me think about something with the tampering, as you said that, because of the player empowerment. So we're going to pause here for a couple of seconds here, come back, get into the next part of the conversation with the player empowerment, where it now kind of bleeds into tampering, where some are even talking about the Sixers being investigated by the league as far as tampering goes. We'll address that next right here on Locked On 76ers. Back at it with you here, Keith Pompey, Devon Givens, Locked On 76ers, talking about player empowerment in the NBA. And as we discuss it, we brought up Ben Simmons, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, etc. It made me think of the latest talks, Keith, where we've seen that maybe the Sixers will be looked at for tampering because of the James Harden situation. And I remember this specifically, and I'm calling it out because I had a problem with it when it was said at the time, and I have a problem with it now because everybody in the NBA tampers, right? Everybody. Like when we were doing the free agent episode, when free agency was getting underway, how do they have these deals done at 6:01, right? We know why, because they were talking early. We know why things are happening. We know all these things. So there was a writer from, I don't remember, it was New York. They were covering Brooklyn. I think his last name is Winfield. I don't know him, but I had a problem with what he said. So if he has a problem with it, I'm saying
man, Christian. You're talking about Christian Winfield.
Okay, that's who it was.
Nice brother. Great dude.
Okay, cool. I had a problem with what he said. He said something at the time about if James Harden gets traded to the Sixers, this should be looked at as tampering. Why? For what reason? Because he asked out. He doesn't want to play there. I may not have agreed with how he exited, but okay, he asked out of Brooklyn. And why is that looked at as tampering? Because of Brooklyn and Philadelphia talking about a possible trade. And Sean Marks and Daryl Morey, of course, Daryl Morey is probably talking to James Harden at some point because of their relationship. Sure. Just like when we talk about Kevin McHale trading Kevin Garnett to Boston for, to Danny Ainge, his former teammate. Is that tampering? Because two friends decided, well, we're not going to open up the trade discussions everywhere else. My point is this. There's a line, I think, where everybody in the NBA knows it. So what are you doing that for as far as hitting up teams with draft picks and all that stuff because of tampering, because the discussion is going on, especially when the players are talking and the players voice as their player empowerment to their front office that, hey, if it's possible, can we get player X? And that's why I didn't understand and had a problem with what you said. Christian Winfield had said that the league, and first of all, why do you care as a reporter if that is tampering? Like you and I, we wouldn't care if the Brooklyn Nets were tampering with the Sixers and wanting to get Ben Simmons from the Sixers or even Joel Embiid. Why would we care as people who are doing our jobs? And so that's where I don't understand that part of it, because it happens every day in professional sports.
But let's be real, D. That stuff was different. I mean, because see, the thing is, that was different because it was like it was different. It was, in my opinion, it was different from a free agency at 6:01. You see such and such signs a 5-year deal for $120 million, right? I mean, we got to be fools not to think that these guys aren't talking to guys to see what's going on, because if you can't get something with that person, you got to move on to the next. So that happens. But the thing is, that where the tampering part came in and a lot of people question it, it was like
sports. I expect everything. It's professional sports. I'm not naive to say
but at the same time, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, the boy was on another team telling the team that he was coming back, but yet and still.
So why is that tampering when he's saying
you cool with, I mean, you talking to people, you got people behind the back doors doing backdoor deals trying to get you out of there, right? So it's just, I mean, I don't know. It's like, again, it's not I don't have a dog in the race. I don't care. But that thing was, that's
what I'm saying. It's pro sports. I don't care because it's pro sports.
Yeah. I mean, but the rule is you're not supposed to.
If James Harden was going to the Sacramento Kings, would it be a problem?
I mean, if the Sacramento Kings were baiting, like, see, here's the thing: the
I
problem
use the
that the
Sacramento
Sixers,
Kings
this is
as
the
is,
problem. This is the
as
problem
is.
that the Sixers. This is a problem that Brooklyn had, and then no, this is the problem that like they couldn't avoid.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden has a relationship with Michael Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden has a relationship with Meek Mill. James Harden has boys who are from Philly,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So the deal is, if you knew once he went there and stuff was going to go left, they were going to be like, bruh, it's time. It's time. And so I think there was some tampering in there, a lot of stuff.
I didn't say it wasn't. I didn't say it
It was,
wasn't.
yeah.
I
And
said I
so it
don't
was,
care. I don't.
but I think like to me, I think that's completely different than the free agent sign. Now, again, here's the deal. This is what they said to him. They said, look, y'all might as well trade him to us, because if not, he's probably going to come here anyway if we could get the money. So, like, but I also think that the fact that the Sixers were overly aggressive enabled Brooklyn to get extra out of the deal.
I don't care enough because it's my job to just look at what it is and all of that. Since we don't root, like you said, you don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have a dog in the fight, just like you don't. If the Sixers win or not, we just do our jobs. I don't care if it goes down that way. Can we talk about it? Sure, but should they be investigated and not be calling that out? I'm not doing that. I'm just not. That's not how I roll. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it is what it is. But the dude,
it's
brother,
part of the gig. It's pro sports.
if that, I mean, I didn't read the article, but like the thing
No, it
about
was a tweet. It was a tweet. I didn't even
oh,
read
it
the
was a
article.
tweet. Okay, because I mean, he young brother. My man went to, I believe he went to Hampton, but he cool cat. Like
No,
New
I'm not
York,
saying he's not cool.
nice guy. I like him. I like him.
He's
So
probably a cool dude. I haven't met him. I don't know him. All I'm talking about is just saying they should be investigated for tampering all the way back in February. Oh, okay. Everybody in the NBA tampers. It goes that way. So I don't know. I'll talk to him whenever we see him at a Brooklyn game in the fall. We'll just talk it out. You can introduce us and we'll talk it out.
yeah,
All right.
cool, bro. He a cool,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah. I'm not saying he's not. I mean, look, he's
They was
covering.
like, oh, it was. I mean, hard in the bus. We'll see, but like, yeah, I mean, it looked like they messed up from the gate though. They should have got him a couple of years ago. It could have avoided all
Well,
this.
even with was it tampering when James Harden asked to come to Brooklyn when Kevin Durant and you know what I'm saying?
But see, that's also that fine line too, because see, if you notice,
That's what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying?
I mean, it was tampering. I mean,
but do we care? Are we sending out the same tweet when it's coming to the team from Houston? Do we care? No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's pro sports.
You think the PJ Tucker? Do you think that before we go, you think the PJ Tucker thing was tampering?
That's more tampering than anything that they would look at right now with James Harden.
Yeah.
As far as his contract goes. If the Sixers were to be looked at as tampering right now and they're being investigated, it would be because of PJ Tucker, not James Harden, waiting to sign his deal. But look, man, it's a good conversation, and I look forward to having that conversation when you introduce Christian Winfield and I in the fall.
It ain't that deep.
No, it's not. But hey, you know me.
I just said he a good brother. That's all.
And I don't have any reason to say that he wasn't. Yeah. No, I just disagree with the tweet.
Yeah.
That's all. Because of now the Sixers apparently, based on reports, maybe being investigated for this offseason. And again, whatever. Man, listen, it's always great to talk about this and have some fun with you on these days. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. That make your second listen Locked On NBA. We're Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Keith, let people know where they can find us, man.
Yeah, before I do that, I would tamper any day, all day, if all I lost was a couple second-round picks that ain't gonna make the roster. Hey, that's just like saying, they just gotta like make some stricter rules. That's all. But listen,
does it?
Y'all can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts at. You can also watch us on the Locked On 76ers YouTube podcast. So what you do is you go to the podcast, you see the Liberty Bell, you click on the Liberty Bell, and you become one of our newest subscribers. But make sure you follow my man D at Devon G975. You can watch him today, tomorrow, and Friday on NBC Sports from 2 to 6. You can also, like, if you don't want to watch him, but you still want to listen to him, you can also go to 97.5 on your dial, your radio dial, and you can listen to his show on there. And then next week, you're doing the morning show, right? For the first 2 days of the week?
First 3 days, yep.
First 3 days of the week, you can listen to him on 97.5 from 6 to 10. And then the next 2 days after that, he's going to go on and continue what he does to 6 to 10 at night. So you can do that. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. I'm on vacation now for my day job, but you can also go to Enquirer.com and read our sports coverage at the Enquirer. Peace.
Absolutely. Make sure you check us out every chance you get for the rest of this week. And Keith, as you mentioned to the folks yesterday, we will be going to 3 days a week beginning August 1st. So, a couple of days off before we get ramping it up once again in the fall when it's time for training camp and all to get underway. Keith, as always, thanks, man.
It's been real, bro.
No tampering. No tampering today.
And leave that Hampton brother alone. Leave
see again, man. Hey, Christian Winfield is all love, man. Yeah, all love. Yeah, as Keith said, leave the brother. I'm not coming at you. I was just saying the tampering thing. Why do we care? That's all.
Yeah. All right.
Let the players do what the players do. They figure it all out anyway. Hey, man, we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks, man.
All right. Peace.